Your willpower is the most important thing in your life because regardless of who you are, what you do, or what interests you have, you use it every single day. And you use your willpower to do really important things. Things like tackling your biggest goals, maintaining social relationships, and you're even using it right now to focus your attention on watching this video. So the question then becomes, if willpower is so important, then what exactly is it and how do you control it? Is it, for example, something that is linked to an organ or a resource within your body, or is it merely something that's all in your head? Well, as it turns out, the answer is actually kind of both, because your willpower is very strongly linked to your blood glucose levels. However, your thoughts and emotions will have a very big impact on your willpower as well. And we're going to learn all about it right now. Willpower is defined as impulse control or self-regulation, and it's merely the ability for you to use conscious effort to modify or change your automatic or habitual responses to stimuli. And it comes in many different forms. So whenever you are altering or changing your thoughts, emotions, desires, or behaviors, you are actually using up your willpower. Now let's take a real-world example. Let's say that you are in an argument with another person, but as humans most often do during these arguments, you're holding back your tongue because you don't want to escalate the situation any further. Now, the only problem with this is that you are significantly draining your willpower by doing this in two very big ways. And the first way is because you are altering your behaviors by not speaking what's truly on your mind. That drains willpower. The second way is because you are presumably suppressing emotions of either dejection, anger, or most likely both. And that can have very, very big consequences, because if you then try to do a very willpower demanding task after this argument, such as studying for a final exam or going to work, you're going to find that it is much more difficult for you to complete that task, at least with any level of proficiency, simply because you just depleted a lot of your willpower during that initial argument. Now, you may have heard that said before, that your willpower is a depletable resource, and that we only have a finite amount of willpower available in any given day. While this is true, what you may not have heard is that your willpower is actually very strongly linked to your blood glucose levels and the ability for your body to transport glucose to your brain. Now, what this means is that if you have insufficient amounts of glucose within your body, you're going to find it very hard to do any willpower demanding tasks, again, at least with any level of proficiency. And dozens of studies out there have demonstrated this relationship, but I'll give you just two examples right now. In the first example, participants' willpower was tested with freshly baked cookies. Now, there were two different groups. One group was allowed to indulge in and eat the freshly baked cookies, but the second group had to resist eating the cookies despite being presented with them. Now afterwards, both groups were tasked with completing the same very difficult puzzle. And the results found that the group who had to resist eating the cookies actually did far worse on the puzzle, simply because they used up all of their willpower initially in resisting the cookies and didn't have any left to actually complete the puzzle. Now in the second study, participants started out by watching a short video. And remember that by focusing your attention on anything, including a video, you start to drain a little bit of willpower. Now, after this video, participants then had to complete what is called a Stroop Task. And a Stroop Task is where a color is spelled out, but the text font is in a different color than the word that is actually spelled out. And this discrepancy is very confusing to the brain. It takes a lot of willpower to sort of differentiate what's going on here. And the results found that the participants who used up less willpower and focused less attention on the initial video did better on the Stroop Task because they had more willpower available to focus on that Stroop Task. Now, in both of these studies, you may notice that I said the word willpower a lot. But if you want to be more biologically accurate, then you will replace the word willpower with blood glucose levels, and you'll really get a more accurate idea of what's really going on within your body. But this may make you wonder, why exactly is glucose the resource that your body has determined to use as its willpower fuel source? Well, the reason is this. Your brain actually uses glucose as its primary resource for fuel, and your brain uses up more fuel than does any other organ in your body relative to its size. However, you have to keep in mind that some areas of your brain will use up more of this fuel, more glucose, than will other areas. So whenever you're performing autonomic functions, things such as regulating your breathing, your heart rate, or body temperature, these things use up relatively little fuel, at least when compared to things like your prefrontal cortex. Now, your prefrontal cortex is a very important area in your brain because that is involved heavily with moderating your decision making and your behaviors. And this is thought to be the area where most of your willpower actually comes from. So whenever you are exercising willpower, you are actually activating your prefrontal cortex and are thus draining a lot of glucose. So think of it this way. Whenever you're performing autonomic functions, it's like you're driving a very fuel-efficient car or a Prius. But whenever you are performing acts of willpower, it's more like you're driving a rocket ship and are burning a whole ton of fuel. So, Now that you know that, you may think that the answer to all of your willpower problems is to simply just pop a couple of glucose tablets every day, keep your glucose levels topped off, and you'll have infinite amounts of willpower. Unfortunately, that's not necessarily the case because the relationship between willpower and glucose isn't really linear. So instead of being a one-to-one relationship, it's more of an enough versus an inadequate amount type of relationship. And what this means is that if you have inadequate levels of glucose within your body, then raising them up to enough is certainly going to help. You're going to feel a bit more recharged and you're going to get a boost of willpower. However, if you go anywhere above enough, that means you're not necessarily going to feel any better results. You're not going to get any more willpower by going up above the enough recommended levels. So popping these glucose tablets isn't necessarily going to help. Also, you need to keep in mind that things like your mood, the time of day, and how well rested you are also have a very big impact on your willpower as well. Now, with that being said, let's also talk about the second biggest impactor on your willpower besides glucose, which is your thoughts and beliefs on how your willpower itself operates. Now, a recent study demonstrated this by separating participants into two different groups. The first group was told that their willpower is an unlimited and untapped resource. The second group was told that their willpower is a very finite and very limited resource. Now, afterwards, the results found that the group who thought their willpower was unlimited did far better on every single willpower exercise, and they were able to use their willpower for far longer than were the participants in the other group. And the reason for this, there's a couple of reasons, but the main one is because humans are very bad initially at estimating our own willpower depletion levels. So this means that if you think your willpower is finite and it is a limited resource, then you're more likely to just use that as an excuse to give up at the first sign of fatigue. But the reality may be that you probably are experiencing some fatigue, right? You probably are a little bit tired and your glucose levels are low, but they're not nearly as low as you think they are. Because humans are initially very bad, we can't estimate what our blood glucose levels are within our body, at least very accurately, just by feeling it out. So this study demonstrates that if you believe your willpower is an infinite resource, then it's nearly impossible to overestimate your willpower depletion levels and give up too early, which means you'll only give up when your willpower and your glucose levels have really reached an adequate level, and you'll just keep going otherwise until you reach that point. Now, we've kind of covered a lot in this video, so with all of that being said, I'd like to give you 5 practical tips that you can start using today to make your willpower more efficient, or at least get a little bit more out of your willpower. And the first tip is to always start out your day by eating a healthy breakfast. The reason for this is just because the same way that you would fill up your car's fuel tank from empty to full every day, or whenever it's on empty, you need to do that with your willpower. It doesn't matter how efficient you're being with your willpower, how efficiently you're working. If your levels aren't up to the optimum level to start the day, you're not gonna get a whole lot done. You're not gonna get a whole lot out of your willpower. So make sure to always eat that healthy breakfast. I know it's a little bit cliche, but now we know that biologically it is very important. The second tip is to focus on being in a good mood rather than focusing on being motivated or having a lot of willpower. There's a lot of motivational content out there, but recent studies have shown that by being in a good mood, you are more likely to overcome those willpower depletion effects, which means that your willpower will actually last longer and it will be more efficient. So remember, be in a good mood, don't try to be motivated. The third tip is to connect your tasks, the things that you're doing, to some sort of core inner belief or some sort of real reason that's important to you of why you're doing them. Again, recent studies have shown that this will help you overcome willpower depletion levels if you think that you're doing your task for yourself or for a very important reason, rather than if you're doing it because someone else told you to do it or because you have to do it. Now, the fourth tip is that if you do start to actually feel fatigued, and that's going to happen, you will get tired and you will feel fatigued, then that's okay. Just simply take a little break, sit down, but eat a healthy snack that is high in glucose. So snacks like bananas, apples, and grapes are all great options. And the fifth and final tip is to, as much as possible, just really try to convince yourself that your willpower truly is an unlimited resource. Because if you do, you will keep going, and remember, you will use it more efficiently, and you will only give up when your willpower, your glucose levels have really reached that inadequate level. Also, I've created a free tool to help you get the most out of your willpower. I call it my custom habit tracking spreadsheet. And this is a spreadsheet that allows you to create your own customized habit tracker with zero spreadsheet experience. It's very cool, it's free. The link to download is in the description below. All you have to do when you download it is enter in the title of your habit tracker, your habits, and then you click on the boxes to customize the look and design. And in just minutes, you'll have a beautifully customized habit tracking spreadsheet that you can use whenever you want. You can start using it even today. So with that being said, I want to thank you for watching. I know that you're awesome and I know you'll be productive. Have you ever wanted to do something so badly but felt like you just didn't have the right tool to help you get it done? Well, this video is all about helping you find the right tool to make you productive. Personally, I prefer spreadsheets and then habit trackers and then journals. I know if you're choosing between these tools for the very first time, it can be a bit confusing. So in this video, we're going to look at the pros and cons of each of these tools in turn.